welcome everybody to this week's Basics Call. You probably recently downloaded the app that your favorite title partner told you about, and now you're joining us to learn how to actually use the thing. And we do this class every Wednesday, so excited to have you guys join this week's session. Definitely a lot of cool stuff that we've added to the app recently. In fact, because of that, I recommend that you all go through and update your app if you have not already. Now, we won't be talking about those features today. I'll be talking about some of those cool new things on our advanced call happening soon here. I believe it's on the once a month we do that advanced call. We'll send you an email, of course, after attending this one with our next session for the advanced call. But excited to have you on the Basics Call. Real quick, while we get started, let us know in the chat section where you're joining from. We always love hearing where all of our amazing agents are joining from across the country. Oh man, I'm already seeing some of these coming through. Hey, you guys, make sure that you're setting your message to go to everyone and not just to the hosts and panelists. We'd love to see where some of you are joining from. Man, Harmony, nice to see you joining from Harmony, James, and got a few other people from that area as well. Oh, Fort Worth in the house. Excited to have some fellow Texans on the call. Well, again, we're excited to have you join us and learn how to use your new app. Now, a few things that I do want to mention. I'm going to be using the Palm Agent unbranded version of the app, which some of you may have. In fact, if you do, there will be a survey later on in the call where I'll ask for you guys to let me know how I'm doing so that we can, let my boss know that this is something that you guys want to continue having available to you. But also, if you do have an unbranded version of the app, there is an opportunity for you to connect us with your favorite title partner. And of course, that is if you're using an unbranded version of the app. For all of you that are using a branded version of the app, first, I know that your title partner thanks you for using their app, but I want to mention that the fees and such that are built into my app may vary slightly from your version because you're using a version that's supported by a title operation, so it's preloaded with their fees. So, my fees on my unbranded version might vary a little bit, along with the fact that I'm using Tarrant County here in DFW. And so the fees might vary, but the functionality that we speak about will be the same on my app and your app. And so we're absolutely going to make sure that you walk away from today's call being able to use this awesome new software a little bit better. Now, we want everybody to update. I'm using the branded version, of course, but what is the purpose of this app, and why do you want to use it in your day-to-day business? Well, this is something that really helps you give answers on the spot to those clients. That's really what this tool is about. That's why your title partner set you up on this app, so that you can be the expert in those conversations with your clients and be able to give those immediate answers when your clients have questions. And of course, I'm going to be showing you how to do that today. We're going to talk about several things today, but the main gist of the Basics Call is to talk about first the buyer calculator. I want to make sure that you guys can do buyer estimates when you're out there house shopping with your buyers, be able to generate that great looking report from your phone in under 30 seconds. We're going to talk about the seller net sheet, and I want to help you guys set up your profile. And so both the buyer estimates and seller net sheets that you make after this session, they will be branded for you because we're going to go in together to our profile and make sure that that's all set up. Now, the advanced call that we do once a month that you'll get invited to after this session, of course, that's where I'll be talking about the new features and some of the more advanced calculators, along with the social media content library that we have in the app. And so I encourage you all to watch for that email from us and join us for that advanced call. I believe there should be a session here happening this month for you. So definitely be on the lookout for that email. But without further ado, let me go ahead and pull my iPad up and dive into this. Now, again, I am using the Palm Agent unbranded version, so I'm going to open up my Palm Agent app. You guys might have branded versions. Again, the functionality will be the same. Before we open that up, though, I do want you guys to know the 3 bullet points on what this app can do for you and your real estate business. First, it's going to help you create those great looking branded reports from your phone in under 30 seconds. And there's a lot of value in that. Being able to create that professional report, text it, email it, airdrop it over to my client in a moment's notice. That's the heart of this tool. And that's really what your title partner is at the core arming you with, a way to create that professional report for that meeting with your client in a moment's notice. Now, the second bullet point, 28 different calculators currently in the app, all designed to help you be the expert in those conversations with your clients. Now, again, we won't touch on those today. I'll maybe tease you guys, show you some of the cool stuff that we'll be talking about in the advanced call. But I encourage you to join us on that advanced call to take a look at some of those additional calculations, because again, we will only be talking about the buyer and seller today. The third bullet point on what this app can do for you and your real estate business is the social media aspect. We've got a massive social media content library with thousands of pieces of really innovative content, all designed to help you get more exposure for your brand on social media. So the app does a ton, but those are the 3 bullet points that I like to boil it down to. And without further ado, let's go ahead and click on that Palm Agent one app icon and open it up and take a look at this bad boy. So I open it up. It opens up by default to the buyer tab. You can see buyer is in blue. That's how we'll generate estimates when we're out there house shopping. Of course, if I switch to the seller tab in that navigation bar at the bottom, that's how I'll generate my net sheet for my listing appointments. And of course, we'll be looking at both of those today. We're going to take a deep dive into both of those calculators so you can get out there and start using those and generating those reports with your clients immediately. But I do want to show you the rest. There is the calculators tab where, like I said, we've got 28 different calculators in here. So many different powerful tools for your business and your conversations with your clients. Now, again, we'll touch on some of these and give you at least a teaser as to what to expect during that advanced call, where I'll be going into some of these more relevant calculators for today's market. Now, the premium tab is the last piece of this. This is where you'll find that social media content library. Again, not something that we'll be talking about much today, but it is something about your app that I want you to know about. Now, this portion of the app does cost, but don't worry, it's not much. It's 99 cents a month and well worth it with a lot of the features that are built in here. In fact, some of the features we'll be talking about today when we go through the buyer and seller calculator. And so definitely urge you to take a look at that. Even without a subscription, you can go in there and play around with some of that content and get a feel for what is available to you for that subscription. But again, I encourage you to join us on that advanced session where I'll be taking a look at this, especially the highlighted content that we do each month. We'll be taking a look at some of that content. But for today's call, again, main focus, buyer calculator, seller calculator, and setting up your profile. And I actually will start with that. So if you go to the buyer or the seller tab down there at the bottom on that navigation bar, you choose either the buyer calculator or the seller calculator. In that top left corner, that is where you'll see 3 lines. If you press that little icon with those 3 lines, that's where you'll get your settings menu here. Of course, there's a lot of different options ranging from, a way to contact our support team. You can call, text, or email right here from the app. You can watch tutorial videos and all that. But, what I want you guys to do right now, in fact, is go into your profile. I want you guys to go through and fill out your profile information here. The buyer estimate and the seller net sheet that we're about to go through do have a branded footer on them. And so I want to make sure that you guys, if you're working up any net sheets or buyer estimates right now, that your content is fully branded. And so you can go through here and fill out all your information. Now, I do have one caveat to that. The photo and logo up there at the top, it does require that you have a subscription to premium to be able to add your photo and logo in. Again, that 99 cents a month is well worth it for that massive social media content library. But in my opinion, it's even worth it to pay 99 cents a month just to be able to have my photo and logo on my reports. And so you don't have to do it now, but I do encourage you guys to check out that premium section, see all that value that you're getting. And with the added benefit of being able to add your photo and logo, it is something that I think that you should seriously think about doing. For Rusty Quarters, well worth it for having our brand be at the forefront of these conversations with our clients. One cool thing I do want to point out here, when it comes to that logo, I'll go ahead and click on that logo. I've already got one loaded in. Of course, you guys might just show a logo icon there. But if I click on that logo, it's going to give me different options for uploading a logo. Now, of course, the gallery is going to open up my photo gallery and I can choose an image from my device. And the upload option is also going to open up my photo gallery. However, any photo that I choose will be uploaded to the Palm Agent system so that that logo can be accessed by other agents. And so you'll see that there's an all logos option. If I click on that, that is where you're going to see all the logos that have ever been uploaded to our system. It looks like there's about 7,000 of them, but you're able to go in here and search your brokerage. I'll just put in Remax and I'll show you guys. Look at all those Remax logos that have already been loaded into the app over agents, by agents over time. So definitely wanted you to know that we probably already have your logo in there. And if we don't, if one of you at your brokerage chooses that upload option, the rest of the agents at your brokerage will then be able to access that logo. So cool little feature there that we've got in there for you. And of course, while we're talking about those profile settings, another cool thing I'll mention to you is I recommend you go also into the account settings right there. One cool thing that we have, there's a lot of other stuff that you can do, put your equal housing logo on there, adjust your disclaimer if necessary. But the one thing I wanted to point out are these 3 brand colors here. I recommend you guys go through, set your 3 brand colors, because some of that content, that social media content in the premium section, it does customize that content based on these brand colors that you have set in your profile. So while we're talking about, going in and updating your profile, putting all your contact information, your photo, logo, I also recommend that you go into the account settings and set up these 3 brand colors as well, just to enhance that branding on your reports and your social media content. All right. Now that that's all out of the way, let's get to the fun part, the math, using this calculator with our clients out there in the field. And I'll start with the buyer calculator. This is a tremendous tool for helping us be a better buyer agent with our clients. And it's not meant to replace the lender. Buyers still need to be pre-approved. All the final numbers go through the lender. But if we've got to wait for a text back from that lender before we can answer a simple question for our buyer, we're doing our buyer a disservice. And that's where your title partner wanted to step in and give you a tool that lets you be that expert in that conversation with your client. Maybe that buyer's spoken with a lender and they've been pre-approved for, let's say, $550, and so they know the monthly payment on and bring to close on a $550 price point. They've spoken about that price point with their lender, so they know the monthly payment and bring to close. But maybe I've found a house that's listed for $475 that checks all the boxes. Do I got to wait for a text back from that lender before I can answer a question about how this changes the monthly payment for my buyer? That's where, again, your title partner wanted to step in, give you a tool that lets you plug in that $475,000 price, hit compute down there at the bottom, and tell your buyer yourself what the monthly payment and bring to close would be on that different price point. And it's as simple as that. Being able to be that expert in that moment with my client and run the numbers, have the estimates preloaded with all the fees that I typically need, thanks to the partnerships with title operations that we have. That's what it's about, you guys, getting to these 2 numbers so quickly and so easily. Now, I do want to take a step back and talk about a few of those input fields that are good for you guys to know about. So I'm going to press this refresh icon up here in the top left corner. It's that circle arrow in the top left. If I press that, it's going to ask me if I want to clear all fields and start over fresh, which I do. So I'm going to press yes. And then that'll give me my blank input screen here where I can fill this out and start my new estimate. Now, I'll do a 5 1/4 price point this time. And I want to point out a few of these input fields. As you can see, loan type has a drop down arrow. If you click that, you've got a variety of different loan types. Of course, all the corresponding fees built right into those different loan types. The interest rate, that's one that we actually update for you guys every single day. We use Mortgage News Daily, a very reputable source for mortgage rates, and we update that every day for you. Now, you can go in there and change it. If that buyer's been pre-approved for a certain rate, you can go in and overwrite that rate, but it is updated every single day for you based on the national average. The buyer broker fee is another one I do want to point out. On the far right side, you can see that you can choose who's paying for that buyer broker fee. Do we want it paid by the seller, buyer, or to be split? But on the far left side, next to where that label is, where it says buyer broker fee, you can actually hit a drop down arrow there and you'll be able to change the name of that fee if necessary. Some of you guys prefer for it to say buyer agent compensation. You can, of course, go in there and adjust the label of that fee as well. Now, as for the actual fee amount, we can, of course, change that. And we could plug in, maybe a 4% buyer agent broker fee or maybe a 2%. So we can adjust that to put in a different percentage. But another thing that our app does, and this goes for a lot of the input fields in our calculators, if you type in anything above 100 as a dollar amount, it's automatically recognized, or if you type in anything above 100, it's automatically recognized as a dollar amount, whereas anything below 100 is recognized as a percentage. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to plug in 20,000 for that buyer broker fee. When I press done, it recognizes that as $20,000. So anything below, on the other hand, I'll go back to 3. That's going to be recognized as a percentage. So cool little functionality, and that'll apply to the down payment, hazard insurance, taxes. All the different input fields will recognize, those larger numbers as dollar amounts. Now, the last one I do want to talk about with you guys real quick is that taxes input field. There's a couple different ways to handle taxes in our app, and so I'm going to go through those with you. First, you'll notice a rate system in there by default. You can see I've got that 2.72 rate. That's based on the county that I'm associated with. At the very top of the screen, you can see I'm associated with Tarrant County. If I hit that drop down arrow, I can always switch my county here. Now, if I did switch my county, it would give me a different rate, and then it'll give me a different list of rates that shows up in that drop down arrow next to where it says taxes. If I press that, it's going to give me different taxes for that Tarrant County area. And of course, if I were to switch my county, it would give me a different list of tax rates in that drop down arrow. So that is the system that is in there by default, a rate system. But that input field, like I said earlier, also recognizes a dollar amount. So if I type in, I've got their property profile and I know last year they spent $5,700, I can type that in and the app's going to recognize that as a dollar amount. But my favorite way, you guys, to handle taxes in the app is using our home link feature. Real quick, I do see that we have a question about a special tax setup. For some areas, there are some unique additional taxes. I know Michigan, for example, does the winter and summer bill in certain areas. And of course, up in Pennsylvania, there is, all the boroughs and all that, the townships and boroughs. And so there is a calculate taxes button in some cases where it'll take you to another page where then you can choose a millage rate or add in that tax bill and choose which half has been paid. And so taxes may be a little different, but the best way, which this way I'm about to recommend, actually is going to handle that question for you, Lindsay, along with some of the other rare variations that we have for taxes. In the top left corner, there's an add address button. This is a feature we call Home Link, and if you add in an address, it's actually going to pull a tax record for that property, and it's going to show how much the taxes are. And so the best way, in my opinion, to handle taxes throughout the app, no matter what area of the nation you're in, is just plug in an address in that top left corner, and it'll pull some of that data for you. And this home link feature, you guys, is so awesome. Not only is it going to pull tax record for me, on the seller side, which I'll show you in just a bit, it'll pull an estimated loan balance for the property. If we're able to see that that loan was originated on a certain date and how much was originated, we can run an amortization schedule to show how much they owe today. And we've added in some really cool features, which maybe I'll show you today. Normally I'd save it for the advanced call, but HomeLink, we added some really cool stuff that, when it comes to this address specific data, we're doing some really cool things. And so I encourage you to plug in the address for every scenario that you're running, not only here on the buyer calculator, but all of our other calculators as well, because we're doing some really cool stuff with address data. Again, I'll show you that in a bit. I'm going to go ahead and use this tax record though. As you can see, it gave me an assessed value a year, a tax amount. If I press done, it loads that tax amount in. Nice, simple way to handle those taxes. Just add an address in the top left corner. Now, the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to skip it for sake of time. Of course, we could add HOA, adjust the closing date. We could do all of that, but for the sake of time, I'm going to press compute. Now, this is a safeguard pop-up that I wanted to trigger so that you guys know about it, but it's not something you're going to see every single time. But if you do see it, I want you to be prepared and know what's happening. Basically, what's happening here is the app recognized last year's tax record was $5,600, but maybe that homeowner qualified for homestead exemption. It also was a lower price point at home. It was like a $400,000 home that I was pulling tax record on, but it's a 5.25 price point that I'm plugging in. Well, if we are to use the 5.25 price point and the tax rate we have for this area, taxes for this new buyer, they'd be more like $14,000. So the app is actually seeing that discrepancy, asking us, hey, do you want to use last year's tax record, lower price point and assessed value? Maybe they qualified for homestead exemption or any other credits. Or do you want to use our estimation for what taxes would be for this new buyer this year? So if there's a big enough discrepancy, we'll serve this pop-up that'll let you choose how you want to go about those taxes if you want to use last year's record or our estimation. I'll go ahead and move forward with the estimation and I'll press next. And then I'm back at my result screen with the two numbers that buyer cares about most, monthly payment and bring to close. Now, again, the bring to close is one of the features that makes this, one of the many features that makes this an amazing tool for you to use in your day-to-day business. We partner with title operations across the nation to load in the fees. So when you're telling that buyer they got to bring $67,400 to the closing table, you're getting extremely close, you guys. Now, if you need to take a look at what's being included, you can press that blue detailed closing cost button and you'll then see all of those itemized out. Again, my fees may vary from your fees if you're following along because I'm using a Palm Agent unbranded version and you're probably using a version provided to you by your title partner and it's preloaded with fees. So yours might even be more accurate than my unbranded version. Now, every transaction's different though. If we do need to adjust these fees, we can do so with the edit button in that top right corner. If you press that, you'll now see that these fields become editable and I can toggle that owner's title policy, for example, to be paid by the buyer or have it be split. So we can go in and choose who's paying certain fees. We can remove line items, add new ones, and of course adjust some of the numbers that are already here. For example, if I adjust that 1% average for that origination fee, maybe I use a lender, he charges a flat fee of $1,500. I can plug in $1,500, app recognizes it as a dollar amount for me, and when I go press done in the top right corner, it's going to give me two options for saving. I can save those changes for just this estimate, or if I want to go through and edit my defaults, I can save those for all future estimates as well. So the app will give us two different options for saving any changes that we make. I'll choose for this estimate only, and I'm going to press the back button in the top left corner and bring us back to our results screen. Now, we build a lot of really cool things into our results screens, and I'm of course going to show you that in just a second. But before we take a look at that, I want to talk about arguably the most important piece of this whole thing, getting this information to our client in a nice, neat format. Well, if I press the share icon in that top right corner, that box with the arrow coming out of it, if you press that, the first option is send full report. Well, I'll press that send full report button and the app's going to generate that great looking printout for me that I can take to that meeting with that buyer. Or, I could use the share icon in that top right corner, text it, email it, airdrop it to them right then and there. But a great looking report, you guys. Loan information on the first page, closing costs itemized out on that second page, a disclaimer on both pages that says this is just an estimate. It's not an actual CD. We do have that estimate verbiage built into a disclaimer on both pages. I also want to point out my branding. That branding footer, I've got all my information in there, that photo, that logo. Now, the photo and logo specifically do require a subscription of premium. I mentioned that earlier. But the text itself, the name, the slogan, multiple license numbers, all of that can be added into your account for free, but you do have to have a premium subscription to add your photo and logo. Now, the printout looks great, but there are some options that we have for you. In the bottom left corner, you'll see a templates button, and there's 7 different report styles, all included for free for you. Some of these have added functionality like a cover photo or color options that you can adjust. In fact, any of those customization options are handled via the Customize button in that bottom right corner. That's where you'll find options like language. We added 3 new languages recently, so there used to be 14. There are now 17 different languages that we can translate this entire document to, you guys. Great way for us to really wow that client who speaks a different language. There's also color options that we can adjust here, even pressing that pencil icon and putting in an exact color code for our brand. Updating our profile information as well can be done here. Like I said, multiple license numbers, slogan, photo, logo, all that good stuff. The edit option, the next one, is actually my favorite. If we open that up, it's going to let us add photos of the listing, video link, client name, notes, really dress up our estimate here. I encourage you guys to use that property photo functionality. Especially if you're sending multiple estimates to a client, maybe you toured 3 homes with them. If you're sending over 3 estimates, how do they know which estimate goes with which home if they don't remember the addresses? Being able to showcase features that spoke to them about that specific home, definitely a best practice. For that first photo, I'd recommend that you take a photo of them standing in front of the house. For the other photos, highlight features of the home that really resonated with them. They loved the backyard because they've got dogs. Include that backyard photo. They had a lot of plans for that bonus room. Include a photo of the bonus room. You really want to use this photo opportunity to highlight features about those homes that really got those buyers excited. The next option in that list, the final option, is the footer. We give you guys 10 different styles for that branded footer at the bottom, all of which will take into account the color that you've selected for your brand color. And so a real cool way to personalize your printout there. Now, earlier I mentioned bullet point 1 was creating that great looking report in a moment's notice from wherever we are. And that's the heart of the tool. And if that's all that your title sponsor, your title partner was providing to you with this tool, they're still trying to help you with your business. They want you to look more professional in these conversations that you're having with your buyers over what might be the largest purchase of that buyer's life. But the app, you guys, is so much more than just a printout creator. This is meant to be a tool that you take to that conversation with your client and you lean on it when the conversation gets a little tough. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to press the back button in the top left corner, and I'm going to bring us back to our results screen. We build the result screens throughout the app in a way that really make this a tool that you take to that meeting with your client and you lean on it. For example, maybe my buyer looks at this and they say, you know what, $4,690 is just a little bit too high. I've only budgeted to spend $4,500 a month. I really got to get that monthly payment down to $4,500. I got a hard stop. What do I got to do to get my monthly payment down to $4,500? Now normally that's when we start pulling out our phone. We start trying to text the lender. How do I get their monthly payment down to $4,500? But with this app that your title partner has provided to you, there's an editable result screen. Both the monthly payment and bring to close have an edit button below them. I can press that edit button. I can change this monthly payment to $4,500. When I hit done, it recalculates the bring to close. So in that moment, I get to be the expert for my buyer. I don't have to wait for a text back from that lender. I'm able to say, hey, if you want to get that monthly payment down to $4,500, we got to get that down payment up to about 15%. If you can do that, that'll get the monthly payment down to the number you're looking for. So it gives us the flexibility to adjust these numbers in real time. So that's the first feature we build into our result screens across the various calculators is an editable aspect. The second feature I want to show you about your result screens is a feature that we've actually built in that's accessed by holding the device in front of you, shaking it back and forth. When you do that, it creates an additional screen. This one on the buyer calculator is going to show us how that monthly payment changes as we make a more competitive offer. Maybe I'm dealing with that buyer and I need to have a conversation with them about this being a beautiful house in a highly sought after neighborhood. There's going to be other offers made on it. I know it. I think it's kind of underpriced. I know it's listed for 5.25, but I really think we need to submit a strong offer, maybe go above ask and offer a 535. I know that might seem overwhelming to a buyer saying 10,000 over, but if we can break it down to how it changes their monthly payment, look, it only changes your monthly payment by like $60. That's a more digestible way to get them to make that competitive offer that's actually going to be considered by that seller. Maybe that buyer, after seeing that, it's only going to change their monthly payment by like $60, maybe they're like, you know what, my wife's already, planning the meal she wants to cook in this kitchen. The kids are already running around picking their rooms. I got to get this house. Let's submit a 545. I don't want to lose out on this one, and $130 isn't going to break the bank for me. It's a way for us to change the narrative and really focus it in on how it changes their monthly payment, how it's gonna change what they actually feel about paying for this home over time. So definitely a cool feature here that I wanted to show you. And again, that's something that we've built into all of our different calculators is a shake feature that'll it'll create an additional screen like the one we're seeing here. All right, I'm going to X out of that. The last thing I'll show you in regards to the anatomy of your result screen throughout the different calculators, I want to draw your attention to the blue bar at the top. That's going to show additional result screens that you can swipe over to. On the right side, you can see it says loan details. So if I swipe left on this screen, it takes me to that page on the right. I've got all the loan details up top. Down at the bottom, you'll see that we run a complete amortization schedule for every scenario you put through that buyer's program. Not something I always need, but definitely something that's good to have here if I do need it. Maybe I'm working with a nurse who's doing a 5-year residency and she's curious, should she rent, should she buy? If she did buy, what would her payoff be at the end of year 5? I've got all that information here. I can go into year 5, see all the months within that year, how much the principal, interest, and what the loan balance would be. So I've got that available at my fingertips when I need it. So that's on the right side with loan details. The left side says modified offer. And before I swipe over to it, I want to kind of explain it for you. It's something that we built because of the NAR settlement. If I'm a buyer's agent, and I've got this buyer right here, and they're just dead set on buying that house over there that's a for sale by owner. And they're not offering a concession to pay me, the buyer agent. What do I do? It's a rock and a hard place. Do I now have to have a conversation with my buyer where I say, hey, look, if you go with that house, they're not going to pay me. And since you signed this buyer agent agreement, you're going to be on the hook to pay me. So you're going to have to bring that extra 15 grand to the closing table because of the NAR settlement. That's just not a good conversation for me to have with my client. And so since that is something that is rare, but it's a difficult situation to find yourself in, we wanted to create a tool to help you in that conversation. And so we created modified offer, where if you do find yourself in that awkward situation, you at least have an alternative to offer up to your buyer. I'll swipe over to modified offer and it's going to show me a number here. 542. I know the house is listed for 5.25, but if it appraises for more, we could actually submit a 542 and build our concession, our 3% concession, right into our offer. So, the seller, they're still netting the same amount. It's no sweat off their back. We're offering above ask to offset that cost for them. And an added benefit of that, if they are getting multiple offers, technically this is an above ask offer that might jump out at them. But the real benefit of this is for our buyer. They don't have to bring that extra 15 grand to the closing table. This is essentially a way for them to roll that into their loan. And so a really cool feature here. Again, it's not going to be as used, but if you are caught in that difficult situation where your buyer is wanting a house where they're not offering a concession to pay you, this is a good alternative solution for you to talk about with your client. Now, the last thing I'll show you in this first calculator is actually something that does require a subscription at premium that I mentioned earlier. But this printout is one of the most popular printout types available in our app, and it's definitely a great way for you to market a listing. So from our buyer results screen with the 2 rings on it, if I press the share icon in that top right corner, again, the box with the arrow coming out of it, if I press that, we went through the first option, send full report. The second option says send geo report. If I press that send geo report button, the app's going to generate an estimate for me again, but this time it's going to use the address that I plugged in earlier for taxes, and it's going to pull me some geo-specific data. You know, I now get to market how close the nearest Starbucks is, or grocery store, those assigned schools. Here's how close they are, and here's their ratings according to niche. Restaurants in a 5-mile radius, internet speeds available at that address, how quiet the neighborhood is with a sound score. All this great information that really helps me market the real benefit of this listing. You know, great content for my open house. This is the type of information that those potential buyers, they really care about. I'm going to be enrolling my children in these schools. How are the schools in this neighborhood? You know, I got to work from home on Fridays. Is there fast internet at this house? You know, does this neighborhood have fiber internet? It's all the information that that potential buyer really cares about when it comes to living in that home. What's the neighborhood? What's the community like? And of course, there's a templates button in the bottom left corner. We've got a variety of different styles and versions of these printouts that you can choose from. Some of them have different data sets like school district rankings for the state and the metro, or a parks and rec section. Some of them you can add photos to. Really cool versions available here for you. We even have a pet report that's pretty popular, and it lets you see where the nearby, you know, dog parks and pet grooming places are. So some really cool ones in there for you. But of course, there's also a customized menu in the bottom right where we can adjust what we're displaying. Maybe I want to go in and press edit and choose not to show the nearest gas station. I don't want that on here. But those buyers, they've got dogs. Let me put the closest dog park. You know, the husband, he loves golf. Let me go ahead and put the closest golf course. Let me change the schools to the private schools in the area. We can really go in here and adjust this to have it resonate with a specific client. So definitely a really cool printout type that I wanted to share with you. Again, it is something that requires premium, but such a powerful tool for us to use in our conversations with potential buyers or even with the seller. This is something you could take to that listing appointment and show that seller, hey, I know how to really market this listing and get you top dollar for it. So cool calculator there. All right, I'm going to keep the show rolling. I'm going to jump over to the sellers tab and talk about the world's fastest net sheet. And you know, I don't say that phrase lightly, you guys. I actually submitted a video to the Guinness Book of World Records to claim that for us. We like to brag. You can create and email off a great looking net sheet in under 30 seconds. In fact, all it really requires, let me show you how quick and easy this is. I'm going to plug in a home price, which nowadays I don't even have to plug in a home price. So in fact, what I'm going to do, the only thing I'm going to do here for my net sheet is add an address in that top left corner. That's it, you guys. You know, first, it's going to pull the tax record for me. You know, we saw that on the buyer side. Great. You know, that's what that homeowner paid in taxes already. So, you know, definitely more applicable here on the seller side. So it pulls the taxes. Awesome. The next thing, I told you it does this, but now I'm showing it to you. That estimated loan balance. I can see they started a loan in 2021 for $427,000. Well, if we run an amortization schedule from that date, they've been regular on their payments. Here's what they owe today, $376. And that, of course, is using the average interest rate for the year that loan was originated, that 2.9. So really cool feature here. It pulls that loan balance for me. The final thing that we're pulling about that address is the estimated home value. Now, I want to point something out. This confidence score, you guys, 85%, we're actually buying data from the 7 biggest data providers in the space. And we're cross-referencing that data against itself. And so the confidence score is actually showing you how much overlap there is about this price model for this specific address. You know, between the different data providers, there's a lot of overlap on how much they think this exact house is worth. So definitely some cool stuff here. I can press use data and it's going to fill it out for me. So it filled out the sales price. It loaded the taxes in there. It put in the estimated loan balance. The only thing I need to adjust if I want to is that closing date. I've got it defaulted to a month out, so I don't even have to adjust that. All I had to do to work up my net sheet, you guys, add the address in the top left corner. And then I press compute, and just like that, I've got that one number that seller cares about most. How much am I going to walk with on the sale of my home? Being able to get to this so quickly, so easily, all I had to do was plug in their home address, you guys, and I've got this great looking report. And of course, all the same functionality we just looked at available here. I can go into the detailed closing cost button and adjust those if necessary. I could press the share icon in the top right corner and send off that great looking report, choose from different styles, add the different footers, all those different options that we saw on the buyer report as well. The edit option available here as well. Maybe that seller says, hey, 345 looks good, but I really needed 360 for this new house I found. No problem. Maybe press edit, change that to 360,000. For you to walk with 360, we'd have to sell the house for about 791. I can easily adjust the net at close and tell them what we'd have to sell it for to get to that. So really cool functionality here. As for those additional features, first, if we shake that device, here on the seller side, it runs 5 net sheets for us. Talk about going into that listing appointment prepared. We can't determine sales price. What we can only determine is list price. What it sells for is what it sells for. Sometimes it sells for more than the list price. Sometimes it sells for less than the list price. That's all we can determine is the list price. So being able to go into that listing appointment with that seller and put out 5 different sales prices all at once. Let me pull that back up for us. 5 different sales prices all at once and what they would net for if it sold for that much. Mr. Seller, if we don't get 776 and we get 766, 765, would 335, 336 still get you where you're trying to go? Or maybe it goes the other way. Hey, I know we've got it listed for 775, but what if we sold it for 785? That's realistically what I think it's actually going to sell for. I think we've underpriced it, so we're going to get some bidding war going. I think we'd actually sell it for 785. How does 354 sound to you? Being able to lay out 5 different scenarios and their net at close on all 5 of those, definitely a really cool way for you to look like a rock star in that conversation with that seller. Let me X out of that. As for the blue bar at the top and the additional screens that you can swipe over to, on the right side, there's a holding cost calculation. A very awesome calculation. In fact, this is such a popular calculation in our app that we went ahead and created its own dedicated calculator in the calculators tab. And so definitely a really cool way for us to talk with that seller about, hey, if we list it for 776 and it sits 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, here's how much it's costing you. And if we need longer increments of time, down in the bottom right corner, we can change it from days to months. And now it'll do 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And of course, this is only doing taxes, insurance, and interest, but there's a lot of other expenses that are adding up as their house sits. We can go into the edit expenses in the bottom left and put in that HOA, the monthly utilities, and other fees. So this calculation is very awesome, you guys. Again, we have its own calculator in the calculators tab that takes this calculation to the next level. I encourage you to join us on that advanced call where I'll be going through some of those advanced calculators. The holding costs, absolutely one of them that I'll be talking about. So that's on the right side. The left side says multiple offers. If I swipe over there, this is an offer comparison tool that'll let you compare up to 75 different offers, you guys. We rose the limit when the market got crazy and we never brought it down. I challenge any of you to go through and try to break it at 75. If you do, we'll raise it up to 100. But being able to load in all those differentiating metrics, earnest money, home warranty, even down here at the bottom, escalation clauses, contingencies, you can really go through and create that offer comparison. I'll really quickly show you. I'll add that offer. It added that first one I ran. Let me add new offer. Let's say the second one is an all cash deal where they're actually often offering 770, but there's they want a $500 home warranty, and they're going to close a little bit later. Maybe they're wanting to close in August. So we've built the second offer, and then I'll go in and I'll add one more. I'll keep this as a conventional and do 775. And of course we could go through and edit some of that stuff, but I just wanted to get 3 offers on the table here. Share icon in the top right corner, send full report, and it's going to create an offer comparison page, 3 offers per page, and then each of those individual net sheets will be included below that. So, being able to generate that offer comparison from my phone in a matter of seconds and be prepared for that conversation with my seller. They're asking, hey, have we gotten any offers yet? Yep, I've got 3 of them here. Let's take a look at them. You just look professional in that conversation with your client. So definitely a cool one I wanted you guys to check out. Now, we've got so much more available in this app for you guys. I could spend all day talking about this cool stuff with you. One thing I do want to take a second to do, now there's still a little bit more. I want to answer questions for you guys. I want to, take a peek in that calculators tab and a quick glance at the premium section. So we'll do that in just a second. But I want to pull up a QR code, for the survey. It's up here. Right there. If you scan that QR code, if you'd be gracious enough to scan that QR code, it's quick, 60 seconds. Let us know how you felt about today's call, what features you like the most. I believe there's also the option to sign up for the beta list to get invited to new features that we release. And of course, for those of you who do not have a title partner, you're using an unbranded version, there's an opportunity for you to go in there and let us know who your title partner is, connect us so that we can see about getting this app built for your title partner and loaded with their fees, so that you can run those scenarios using your title partner's fee. So, I'll give you guys a second if you wouldn't mind scanning that QR code and taking that quick survey. And while we do that, let me give it a few minutes and see if there are any questions. If you want to send your questions, you can send them to hosts and panelists so that my team can see them as well on there. But any questions that come up, feel free to ask those while we take a quick moment for the survey. In fact, I'm gonna take a quick break and grab a drink of water real quick, and I'll give me 30 seconds and ask any questions that you have in the chat section, and we'll get those answered for you. Question. Awesome. Well, let me get my iPad pulled back up. So again, we do have that advanced call that you'll be emailed about where we'll dive into some of these additional calculators. I'll tease you with one of the calculators just so you can see some of the cool stuff that we have in here. Our true value analysis calculator is one of my favorite calculators, and with the recent updates that we did, it's even easier to use. And with our last few minutes here, I could easily go through this one. This is a calculator designed to help you have a better pricing conversation with your client. You're able to run 3 net sheets at once and then talk about some of the risks involved in pricing too high. The house sitting on the market longer and those costs involved with those with the house sitting on the market. And then, of course, if it sits too long, we've got to do a reduction. How does the reduction in the holding costs affect your net on these 3 different pricing strategies? That's essentially true value analysis. So it lets you go into that conversation with that seller, that unrealistic seller, which a lot of those sellers today are. It gives you the ability to have that conversation with them about a more realistic listing price for their home. And again, it's a calculator. I'll go in more depth with you on the advanced call, but I do want to show you all you have to do for this calculator is add an address in the top left corner. Similar to the net sheet, but even more so, we're going to pull address specific data and really fill this out for you and do all the heavy lifting for you. We pull the tax record. We pulled that loan balance. Those two things we already saw. The estimated home value, we've got that low end, the market, the high end. We can overwrite those. I can click on any of those numbers and adjust those, but the app is going to pull from our data providers the estimated home value for you. Then all those holding costs as the house sits, the electricity bill, the HOA, the taxes, all those different costs also calculated. We're using AI and local data to calculate all those for you. So let me go ahead and use those. So I'll use the tax record. I'll use the loan balance. I'll use those estimated home values that the app generated for me. All that data automatically used. So next, use, next. Those holding costs, let's go ahead and use that data. It pre-fills the entire input screen for me. I press compute. It's going to give me my 3 different pricing strategies. And then, if there is a house that sits on the market for 6 months, because we got the low end on the left side, it flies off the market with 1 month, they're going to net about 300,000 versus the high end where we listed it sits for 6 months and costs us about 15 grand while it sat there. But really, if it sits for 6 months, we're going to have to do a reduction. There's a reduction toggle right here. I can flip that. It throws a reduction section on here. And now I can have that conversation with my seller and say, hey, we might actually end up netting you more, listing it for less and having it fly off the market. Rather than listing it higher where you want to list it, it sits for 6 months, costs you about 16 grand. And then you had to do a reduction and ultimately you're not even netting as much. And this calculator is so awesome. We've got local data from Altos. We've got an amazing report for you to take to that meeting with that seller. This is a calculator. I'll go more in depth on that advanced call, but it's definitely a really cool one. And I just wanted to show you some of the advanced features that we have in here to really help you be that pro in that conversation with your client. You got an unrealistic seller, we've got something for you. You've got a lowball buyer, we've got something for you. You've got that buyer who thinks that rates are going to be lower next year and they're going to wait. We've got the ultimate tool for that conversation as well. So I encourage you to watch for that email, that invite to the advanced call and join us. I definitely think you'll find some really useful tools when I cover some of these additional calculators. And then, of course, the last piece of this, which, again, I'll be talking about in that advanced call, is the premium section, that social media content library. From graphics that you can take to your conversations with your clients, social graphics, filters for letting you take photos and videos with a fun real estate themed frame. We've got videos in here. We even have a category of calculators that are watered down consumer versions that you can share online and collect leads from anybody who interacts with your calculators. So a lot of cool stuff in here. In fact, in the advanced call, what I talk about specifically are these monthly marketing packages. Each month, we highlight pieces of content based on the biggest conversations that you guys are having out. And so, of course, in our advanced call, I'll be talking about what we've highlighted for this month's marketing package. But definitely some really cool stuff in here. I encourage you to join us on that advanced call to learn more about it, but also go in there and play around with some of this stuff. There's a ton in here to help you get more exposure for your brand. All right, I believe that is everything for today. Again, thank you, and I want to give you a thanks on behalf of your title partner who brought you in today. But thank you for taking the time, filling out that survey. Thank you for joining, and thank you for being a user of our app. Feel free to reach out. We've got our support team that's always available for you guys, support@palmagent.com. If you're ever dealing with anything or you have any ideas, feel free to send those in to us. We're trying to keep this the most relevant tool that you can have as a real estate agent, and feedback from you guys is definitely how we're able to do that. And so thank you for being a user, and we look forward to seeing you on the advanced call.